Hello, 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 everyone. This is Cassandra Williamson, Executive Director for Transgender and Diverse Veterans of America and our action group, TDVA and TDVA Action Group, coming to you from the beautiful place in Alabama called Northport, which is right near Tuscaloosa in the University of Alabama campus. And anyway, it's a beautiful little town, little place down here, little really small little place, actually about 19,000 or 20,000 people here in Northport, and about 90,000 or so over in Tuscaloosa, just across the river. So anyway, so what's on your mind today? Oh, it seems like every day there's something else to talk about. And we all know that. We all know what's coming up. We know what's going on in the world around us for the most part. But a couple of big news items. We do know that Kevin McCarthy is having his speakership of the U.S. House of Representatives challenged today by Matt Gaetz from down in Florida. And they're going to bring it to a vote sometime this afternoon, I think. I don't know the exact time. But sometime today, they're going to bring that up. And, that's going to be interesting, too. Depends on what they do, if they table it or postpone. I don't know, whatever they want to do with the thing, but who knows? But that about the only way that Gaetz can get somebody out is if Democrats come with him and he gets all the Republicans going on his side of the thing. And then the way McCarthy gets to stay in is if all the Republicans say, we don't want McCarthy to go away, but you've got a sizable handful of Republicans who are saying, no, we got to do something else. This is not right, whatever it is. Anyway, so that's going on in the U.S. House today. And for McCarthy to stay in as Speaker of the House, and if he doesn't get all of the Republican support needed to carry him over the finish line to actually maintain that role, he'll have to have support from the Democrats. So we don't know how that's going to play out. I know that Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader of the House on the Democrat side, has made it clear that he is not telling anyone yet how that's going to turn out. So we don't know. So anyway, it's drama, and more drama in the House. But in the meantime, while all that squabbling is going on over the leadership in the House of Representatives, they've done everything in their power since the Republicans are in charge of the House now. They've done everything in their power to fulfill the mission statement of this little piece of this document called Mandate for Leadership by the Heritage Foundation and Project 2025, which is the generic name or the general name. I think it's Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership or something like that. I've got it pulled up in the background here because we haven't even made it out of the the foreword that was written by Dr. Kevin Roberts. So I mean, the foreword tells us the whole story, but here it is: the House, the Republicans are out here pushing for the complete acceptance of that document, the Heritage Documents, Project 2025. They are going full steam to make it happen. As a matter of fact, all you do is look through the talking points that's contained just within the foreword that Dr. Roberts wrote. You can see that. You can see it out on the campaign trail. You can see these candidates out there attacking the thing that's in the very first two paragraphs of the foreword. They go after transgender people. Not they, he, Dr. Roberts specifically. And it's just crazy. I don't understand this animus towards people like me. I don't understand that. I'm not. I don't want to get into all that in just a second. I go chase squirrels with it, which I can do, and I have done, and I do often. I go chase squirrels, and people say, "Do you have a planned script for your speech?" Oh, here's a squirrel. No, usually what it is I know where I want to go, and I know where I'm starting from. Sorry, the course of the action that gets me there. Well, it may be all over the place. But that's what life is like, right? Unless you're the Heritage Foundation and you put together a 920-page document that is anti-minority, all minorities, period. And yeah, they're going to say we had some minorities helping write all this stuff, no doubt about it. We had some different minorities working in there to do different things, but that's just platitudes. We know that. This document, I mean, there's some good things in the document. Don't get me wrong. But I'm going to tell you that they tell you who they are at the very beginning, and they do that throughout the whole thing. If you don't believe it, go read it for yourself. I mean, it's really what it's all about. And they've been pushing this kind of stuff out on the campaign trail. I mean, you start talking about what transgender people do. What do we hear for the past 3 weeks, really? This massive focus on transgender people coming from the right political candidates. And I know from what I've read that many of those people who are out there running for president over on that side of the fence have actually seen the document, been made aware of it. I don't know if they've read through the whole thing because it's 920 pages. And, you know, the forward is kind of enough to give you an idea. And if they just read the forward, then it seems to me as if, as a matter of fact, that seems to me as if that's what they have done. Read the forward and then using that as a talking point. Because what does Dr. Roberts mention? The very first thing, first 2 paragraphs, let's go read it and see. And yeah, I'm spending a lot of time talking about this darn thing because this is a Goliath type organization, a huge, monstrous organization. And it has deep, deep, deep pockets. Okay. 200, I think in 2022, the end of year report with the IRS had them at $265 million left over after they did everything they did in 2022. Now, a bunch of organizations came together in April of 2022, and they've been developing this Project 2025, this mandate for leadership. So whenever a conservative person steps into the White House and says, "So help me God," they want to be able to push this stuff out on day one, within an hour of the president going, "Hey, so help me God." And it's a detailed plan. It's a detailed plan to make it happen. And they learned from the 1980s whenever they didn't have as much of a detailed plan, because they were able to get President Reagan to push in within the first 100 days or so, about 60% of that mandate for leadership they had back in 79 and 1980. This time around, they've got a much, much, much more organized plan and a strategy to make it happen. They're not just handing the book over or handing the document over. No, they're setting up training academies to go ahead and vet people to come in and do this, to walk in and accomplish the goals of Project 2025. And they don't even have to read past the introduction, the forward. They don't have to read past the forward to find out where these people stand on this. I mean, they tell us who they are, they tell us what they believe, and they tell us how they're going to go about doing it. And if that doesn't get you all riled up and say, no, we're not going to have these people actually dictate to the other half of the country how the country should be run from their perspective. This is a collaborative type of effort here in this country. It is a republic. Yes, a republic. And that means that we elect representatives to go to Congress to represent us and speak for us. But you know what happens generally is they only speak for the ones that they like, or in many cases, the ones they get the money from. They probably ought to wear NASCAR patches. So I got this money from DuPont, or I got this money over here. I got this one. See that patch right there? I got that patch from, I don't know, the Heritage Foundation. Yeah. I mean, that's who the candidates, I mean, that's who our people in Congress ought to, they ought to have uniforms like NASCAR drivers. And I know I'm not the only one who's ever said that, by the way. That's not unique to me by any stretch of the imagination. But I do know that, I mean, that kind of thing happens across the board. It doesn't matter if it's Democrats or Republicans or independents or liberal or conservative or whatever label you stick to them. There are people plowing tons of money into those groups and those ideas, those ideologies, to see them come about. And sometimes there are people playing both sides of the fence. And more often than not, the large corporations are playing both sides of that fence. Okay, because, if they can get some support over here and a little bit of money over there, and whoever gets in, regardless of who gets in, they win. That's the idea, okay? That's really what they're doing. They're playing both sides of the fence. You see these organizations backing down. You see these companies backing down and corporations backing down these days from some of that diversity and equity and inclusion programs, the DE&I stuff, the ESG stuff that's taking place in some corporations because they realize those things have impact on their employees and the community to which they serve. But, they're backing down off of that a little bit because, they can take care of making sure we're actually represented over here of minorities, regardless of whether it's racial, ethnic, sexual orientation, or gender identity, or whatever. They play this side of the coin and go over and play the other side of the coin. Yeah, that raises my temper just a little bit. It does a whole lot, actually. And I'm hoping that it can get you fired up against this stuff as well, because Project 2025 is a danger to the way of life in this country. Its ultimate goal is a theocratic republic. And even more specifically than that, they're not going to say it all out front right now, but a lot of what's driving this over on the extreme side is Christian nationalism. And if you're not aware of what that is, go look it up. Go check out Christian nationalism. As a matter of fact, I think there was some state senator somewhere in the Midwest, upper Midwest, who just came out and ranted about that and saying, we want to have Jesus is Lord across all of government. And that phrase, Jesus is Lord, by the way, actually comes from, I think it was originally put together by a ministry called Kenneth Copeland Ministries out of Fort Worth, Texas. They have a whole program, Jesus is Lord kind of stuff. They've been doing it for 30 years, probably, if not more, that whole program. But here's the thing. They're the ones also feeding in a lot of this people into these various organizations and even sit on the Religious Liberties Council, or whatever it was called at the time under President Trump. And I know that the pastor, the minister for Jesus is Lord group, Kenneth Copeland, he was actually advising. He was one of those advisors, okay? Christian nationalism is what's driving a lot of this crap that we're seeing from people like Dr. Roberts and Paul Dans. I think the other person is Steve Groves, but also Stephen Miller. You name it, Alliance Defending Freedom and America First Legal, and all these different organizations. 70 organizations came together to write Project 2025. Not all of them are so far over to the right that they're going to accept that Christian nationalism perspective, but the document is a consensus document. They arrived at this and they all agreed to do this, and this is what they all finally settled on as a compromise, basically, to get what they all want. And they tell us what they want to do in the forward. It's very clear. I mean, it's not even a laughing matter. I just think it's funny that we're not stepping up here and going, this is wrong. Maybe we ought to ban that thing. That's a book we ought to. It is actually. It came out in book form a month ago, maybe. I don't know, something like that. Came out as book form. It's also in PDF. But don't go buy the darn thing. Don't go out there and give them your money. Shoot, they've got enough money as it is. They really are trying to eradicate us and delete us and excise us from the whole government. That's stated clearly in the forward to those specific words. I mean, they're telling us who they are. And if we don't believe them, if we don't take them at their word, that's on us. Because they very clearly want to remove minorities, any kind of identification of minority people in this country. They want to strip it away. And if you are a minority, if you have multiple intersecting identities, because you could be Black and trans, or you could be Latino and gay, or any of those multiple identities that we have, all of us have them. You know what mine are? One is, I got a multiple identity. I'm a parent, a grandparent, a veteran. Let's see, in the Marines and the Navy and the Naval Academy, all this kind of stuff. I've got all of these multiple intersecting identities. And I'm also, I grew up in Appalachia. So if you can't tell by the accent, it's an accident of, an accident. Right. I'll tell you a story in just a second. This kind of helpful, hopefully kind of liven up the day a little bit for you. But anyway, the whole goal of Project 2025 Mandate for Leadership is to reduce federal government to the point where they're able to get rid of, I think, Vivek, however how you pronounce his last name, I don't know, but they said he wants to get rid of like 75% of all federal employees. He won't be able to do that. but if they all decide to follow Project 2025 on day one, well, the first big thing is you're going to see is the new president's going to re-implement this thing called Schedule F. That'll be one of the very first things that they actually do, other than rolling back all the care for LGBT people in the whole of government. Okay, I mean they'll be contiguous. They'll be together. The comments and how they react to all that's going to try to take place within the very first few minutes after "So help me God" and the president takes over. If he's a conservative, they are a conservative person, not necessarily he, but they or whomever takes over. But we've got a lot to deal with here, and we have to be ready for that. We've got about a year, a little over a year, to make sure that this document does not ever get implemented across the whole of our federal enterprise. And it's not just federal. The states are picking up on this too. You're starting to see a lot of people in the states, and particularly in those more conservative states, doing the very things that are listed within that forward to Project 2025. So, I mean, if you don't see it, you don't get the sense that this is who they are, that this is really what they want you to see of themselves, then there's no hope for us, to put it bluntly. We've got to stop all this, I guess it's internecine kind of warfare between all the various groups. My group is this one and your group is that one. And this is don't come between us or get between this thing. Well, I'm going to tell you, every single minority in this country is under threat by this thing, by the Heritage Foundation's Project 2025. Everyone. And if they do more than 60% of it, like they did in the 1980, whenever Reagan took over as president, I think it was 80 or 81, whenever he did. But anyway, so when Reagan stepped in as president, were able to get 60% of that unplanned. It was, a document to tell them where they want to go, but they didn't have a long-term strategic plan to make it come about. They do now with this Project 2025. If they get 60% of what they want in there, they're going after the weakest link in all of those minority groups. Anything to do with diversity, equity, inclusion, gone out of the whole of government, literally erased and excised from the whole of government. The term's gone, not just the idea or the concept behind that, or just the fact that we are these things. No, they want the whole word gone out of the whole of government. That way you have no way of saying, hey, look, this group of people over here, they have a certain identity and it's causing a lot of issues with their health and their wellness and their well-being. And we need to find out what that is and what's going on and why that's occurring. But you can't use the word sexual orientation, gender identity to go over there and look. You can't use the word black to go over there and take a look at it. You can't look at the racial overtones of all of that, because they're trying to strip away all of that and turn the whole of government into this vanilla color, probably, or white. I mean, they're just whitewashing the whole of government. That's what a majority can do and wants to do, because they feel threatened by us. They feel threatened by anyone who is different than them. And don't let them placate that and make it easy to see, because that's exactly what they're doing. And don't let them fool you with this. And, the thing that's tricked the most people over on that side, I think, in this case, and this is, it's like they had the whole wool pull over their eyes, and they can't see the vileness of what they're doing. They think it's right. They think they're right about it. You see Christopher Rufo making comments all the time about education down at the new college in Florida. He was talking about something yesterday in an article I read yesterday, talking about how someone else had attacked him. And he basically ended up with saying, but this is the right education that we want to impose down there. And I've seen that phrasing of that many times. And they don't mean that as being right as in best or the most correct. They mean that in right as in right. It's not that little thing that they tell you that, hey, this is right, but that's wrong. No, 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 no. A right education is exactly what they're shooting for. Right. They use that word, they kind of slide it in there and make you think that that any other option would be wrong. And that's also part of the nuance of what they're doing. Don't get me wrong, but at the same time, they're saying that the left education they don't want. So you got left, wrong, right, right. It's plain as day. Get off your asses and get going. We need to fight this stuff. Set aside your differences in your organizations. Come together now or we lose. It's that simple. And if you don't think that's the case, well, that's been our problem all along, hasn't it? Because we are individuals. We actually are fiercely independent. All of us over here are talking about this. And by the way, I'm talking from our action group hat side, just so you know, and not our C3 side. Okay, this is the action group side, the advocacy side stuff that I talk about on this show, because we've got a lot of programs to help veterans out there. We've got a lot of stuff going on. TDVA has a lot of stuff going on. Other organizations have lots of things going on out there with peer support and training programs and all this kind of stuff. Great, fantastic. Let's bring it all together under one darn tent and let's start fighting against this real and present danger, existential threat that's coming from the likes of the Heritage Foundation, Alliance Defending Freedom, and America First Legal, and all the at least 70 more out there that all agree with it, that agreed in a consensus format. And how'd they arrive at that consensus? Well, I could go into the weeds about that too, but there was a method back in the 50s called the Delphi method, created by the Rand Corporation. It's an iterative process of coming to a consensus. Take this, if you get 10 people liking it and you got 20 who don't, well, you modify slightly and see if you can get 12 to like it, send it back out, and keep repeating that. The crux of that matter is that for the most part, the people who are doing that kind of reviewing and iteration are academic, typically. However, because, they're the people who actually know what they want to do. That's the Delphi method. That's how they arrived at this darn thing. Okay, a consensus method. And that's the one that they all bought onto and actually signed on and said, yep, this is fine. I'll go with this. And then they did this. Let me just go up here and present a screen. I want to show you something. Okay, here we go. Da-da-da-da. Let me increase the size of that just slightly. Now this is, let me go up to the top of this darn thing, okay? I know I've gone through this a lot with all of you, and I'm going up to the top. Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise, Project 2025 Presidential Transition Project. That's exactly what this thing is. They don't want to waste a single minute on having to go through and vet a bunch of new people just to take over the whole government. They're going to do it. They've already started. They're recruiting people now to go through their training and vetting and, and all that kind of thing, so they could go from all across the country. They're vetting people and training them, preparing them to step into the whole of the federal enterprise in the executive branch specifically, and then just accomplish the goals in this thing. So you want to know what the goals are? All right. I'm going to have to give an acknowledgement that this is a book, and the document that I've gotten from them is a free download from their site. Okay, so it's copyright 2023, the Heritage Foundation in Washington, D.C. And there's their phone number and there's their website. Okay, so all rights reserved. So I'm just talking directly from this and then pontificating on it a bit too. All right, the foreword by Dr. Kevin Roberts, PhD in history. Paul Dan's an attorney. Stephen Groves, I'm not sure what his capacity is on that. Both of them, all three of them are really, really strong conservative. Dr. Roberts came out of Texas, if that doesn't help you to understand it a little bit. Yeah. So, all right. So I'm not even going to bother with all of this stuff. It takes on all of the different parameters that have to do with the federal government, the executive branch. Everything executive branch in the White House is tasked with controlling or regulating or doing, this document covers it. Right. And let's look right here. I mean, it said, this is a conservative promise, a collaborative or a collective effort of hundreds of volunteers who have banded together. And I'm really surprised at this because collective is like, they borrowed a word from, I think it was Marx or Lenin. Okay. All right. And anyway, oh my God. I'm just going to scroll on down past this. You can see all the different organizations on here. Look at the very top one. Obviously, it's in alphabetical order, but you got Alabama Policy Institute and Alliance Defending Freedom, American Compass, American Conservative, America First Legal. Let me put this in context here. America First Legal Foundation, that's Stephen Miller, former senior advisor to President Trump. One person who has been focused on maintaining white supremacy in this country from I think probably kindergarten. I don't know how on earth he came to that. Don't know. Grew up in a Jewish household. So, but anyway, so this is like, really? Okay. So, I mean, you got all these different organizations down through here. I'm not even going to, I mean, you got the Claremont Institute, Center for Renewing America, Center for Family and Human Rights. Oh my God, it just goes on and on and on. All these organizations came together and made this Project 2025 a reality. If you see an Liberty University, if you don't believe that they're there, and as a matter of fact, where's the other one up here? Hillsdale College. There we go. See, you got Heritage Foundation, Hillsdale College. I mean, and here we have some states taking on a Hillsdale College curriculum and then using that in their elementary schools, K through 12, and also in, the college level stuff. And that's what they mean by right education. When they say right education, that's a loaded word meaning not wrong, and also meaning politically right. Yeah. It's a loaded word. I mean, that's why they use words like that. I mean, well, you see it in media too. Both sides do that everywhere. Okay. They'll use loaded words. I can tell you a story. I remember hearing a story. I actually read a story from a Fox News affiliate. And they were talking about, and actually it was a panel discussion, actually, I think that's taking place. But in it, they were saying, it's like Sherman's March taking on. This is what the liberals want to do. It's like Sherman's March. And they only used the word once. But that appealed to a certain group of people. And the word choice was very deliberate. And it appealed to a certain group of people, whether or not they fully agreed with everything that had been said to that point. They used that loaded word because it's manipulation. It's psychology 101. All right. You can drag people along. All you have to do is get them to agree to one part of it, then get them to agree to 2 or 3 parts and legs of what you're trying to say. And eventually they're fully on your side because you just keep guiding and leading and manipulating them to get to that place. Yes, it happens across the board ideologically. Of course it does. We all know that. Okay. All right. So, and then here's a note on Project 2025. Who wrote it? Let me go down and take a look at it real quick. That's just a note. This is the Roman numeral identified pages. Anyway, got a bunch of names in there. So I put it in yellow here for you. History teaches that a president's power to implement an agenda is at its apex during the administration's opening days. We know that. That's why you have the 100-day mark, right? To execute requires a well-conceived, coordinated, unified, and trained and committed cadre of personnel to implement it. They're telling you what they want to do right there. They haven't given you specifics, but they will. In recent election cycles, presidential candidates normally begin transition planning in the late spring of election year or even after the party's nomination was secured. That is too late. See, they learned that from the 1980s whenever they handed that document over to Reagan because they were only able to get 60% of it accomplished. Okay. Yeah. They're shooting for a near 100% with this one. Okay. The federal government's complexity and growth advance at a seemingly logarithmic rate every 4 years. That's true. That seemingly logarithmic is probably the correct, appropriate way to say that, and they actually were. They actually did use that because obviously it's by the time you fight and wrangle over everything, it probably doesn't change a whole heck of a lot. Anyway, so you got pillar one. All right, these are the project is built on these 4 pillars. Project 2025 is built on these 4 pillars. Pillar one, this volume, this thing, this book, Project 2025, the document. All right. Puts in one place a consensus view of how major federal agencies must be governed, and where disagreement exists, brackets out those differences for the next president to choose a path. So you have 920 pages of a consensus view. I'm kind of curious as to what's left over. You know, is there any room for the president to actually make a decision in there, or are you just going to give the president a few crumbs to make sure that they feel like they're doing something? Okay. All right. So anyway, that's pillar one. Consensus view, this volume, consensus view of how major federal agencies must be governed. Pillar number 2, the personnel database is a personnel. Look now, here they tell you what they're going to do at the top. This is how they're going to start doing it. A personnel database that allows candidates to build their own professional profiles and our coalition members to review and voice their recommendations. These recommendations will then be collated and shared with the president-elect's team, greatly streamlining the appointment process. So if you've got people who have been already vetted, and you've got people who have already been trained in a certain office or the way a certain part of the executive branch works in the federal government, if you've got people trained and prepared and ready on day one to step into these roles, and you give these candidates an option of selecting Sally, Sue, Emmanuel, or Raphael. I mean, they can pick one, but they've all been trained by Heritage. You're going to get the same thing regardless, right? That's what they're doing. Right, exactly. All right, pillar number 3. Holy crap. Okay, so pillar number 3 is the Presidential Administration Academy, an online educational system taught by experts from our coalition. For the newcomer, this will explain how the government functions and how to function in government. Because they're going to get a lot of people from all across the country. They're looking to bring in like 20,000 people and train them, vet them, make sure they're capable of having and holding a security clearance. They're going to do all the legwork up front. All right. So here you got, for the experienced, we will host in-person seminars with advanced training and set the bar for what is expected of senior leadership. My God. Pillar number 4. My phone is just going crazy over here with all these emails popping up. Pillar number 4 is the playbook. We are forming agency teams and drafting transition plans to move out upon the president's utterance of "So help me God." Got your 4 pillars. Let's go back again just to encapsulate this just slightly. 4 pillars. Number 1 is this volume right here, consensus view. 920 pages of a consensus view from at least 70 organizations and hundreds of academics and other people and in the conservative movement on that side of the fence, all coming together to create a consensus document that's 920 pages long. Yeah. Okay. Pillar number 2 is a personnel database. Got that. They're building that up, vetting people, training them, all that kind of stuff. Presidential Administration Academy. This is where the newcomers get a chance to understand how government works and all that kind of stuff and how to function in the government, as they say clearly right there. And then also to give some advanced training for the more experienced people. So, just as soon as in pillar number 4, the new president says, "So help me God," they'll already have seen all this stuff. As a matter of fact, most of them already have. They know what's out there. They know this is there. They've been shown these things. So Heritage is the one wanting to run the complete Republican side, the conservative side of this country. It won't be the executive being led by a president beholden to, Americans. Even though people in Heritage are Americans, don't ever go down that road with me, because we're all real Americans, regardless of whether you like me or not. Period. And the same applies the other way around. Whether I like you or not, if you're born in this country or naturalized in this country, you're an American. Whether I agree with you or not is not relevant. You're still an American. Whether you're, lily-livered white or yellow or whatever descriptor you use, your identities that define you, if you're naturalized in this country or born in this country, you're an American. And that's as simple as I could say it, okay? Period. I don't care who you are. Even you, even the people out here in this organization, in the Heritage or Alliance Defending Freedom or Stephen Miller, as much as I do not agree with anything that they are saying, they're still an American. And we need to respect that. And that's what I'm asking of all of our people, too. I mean, it is one thing to be really energetic and energized and passionate about all this, but remember, you're talking about fellow Americans. And there has to be that basic respect and dignity given to each of us. And yeah, you may have one view that says this one is better. This is right. This is the right way to do it. And this over here is, well, since it's not the right, it has to be wrong, right? Oh, my gosh. Anyway, they're all still Americans. Don't ever forget that. We serve for everyone, all of us veterans, all of the military currently serving. As a matter of fact, those in public service, you should be serving for all Americans and not just the ones you're beholden to because of the patch on your sleeve that says, I don't know, Heritage Foundation, bought and paid for. Yeah. As a matter of fact, that's what we ought to have on all the hats. Anyone or any labels, any ID that gets presented by all these people put out there. This whole slate of people, this training program, the playbook, all of this whole thing, their ID badges and things such as that should say, my name is, I've been bought and paid for by the Heritage Foundation, Alliance Defending Freedom, America First Legal. But I'm here to represent just myself. No, you've been bought and paid for, but you're still an American. Always that, just so you know, you're still an American. Even though I may disagree with you in a big way on how you think that America should be run and managed and governed is more appropriate, I guess. So, I mean, personally, and I'm kind of giving a little bit about it, but personally, the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society and all those things, their biggest let me see, what's the word I'm looking for here? Their biggest role model that they follow is Thomas Jefferson and James Madison and, those people. But in Thomas Jefferson, though, they neglect a part of him that he kept hidden or tried to. And they always say, this is, limited government. It's fine. Limited government. Great idea. Fine. Should be. No doubt. But you have to take care of all your people who need help. Okay. And those definitions, it's the politicians who wrestle over all the definitions for stuff. Got it. But anyway, so Jefferson is seen as this role model for the ultra-conservative view of America. And, an agrarian style. It's not big city. It's more along the lines of the country and the rural sides and part of all that, the farmers and the farmlands in the middle of the country, the breadbasket part of the country. And Jefferson was opposed to manufacturing at first until it took him, I guess, 12 years to figure out that, hey, wait a minute, manufacturing is actually a net benefit. But Jefferson was opposed to manufacturing because he thought that it would bring in all of these people from over in Europe who worked in those factories and create cities around the factories, or the factories or whatever built in cities. And you have all these city people that he couldn't control or couldn't predict how they would vote, but who typically voted liberal in some way. Okay. So anyway, that's one of the things he objected to. But he changed his mind after he became president. because, he realized, wait a minute, this is actually good for the economy. Okay. And he hated Hamilton's banking system. And there's been that constant fight between the Jeffersonian side of things and the Hamiltonian side of things. And I know I'm getting academic and all this kind of crap. But anyway, it all builds into what I see is happening in Project 2025. Right now, they are drawing clear lines between what they think is the right America and what they believe is the wrong America. They're drawing a clear line between the conservative America that they want and the liberal America, or left. And we see that in Christopher Rufo's writings with the new college down in Florida. Right education this, right education that. Really? Why not just say education? But no, you're playing with words, you're playing with fire, and you're doing that for a very deliberate reason, which is psychological warfare 101 or psychology 101, however you want to look at it. But that's what they're doing, is manipulating that way of thinking. And if they can get you to agree with them that this is right and not wrong, then it's easy for them to also say this is right and not left. So there's a lot going on with these things. This is pillar 1, 2, 3, and 4 that you're looking at on your screen right now. Let's go on down. Oh, by the way, this was written by Paul Dans, the attorney, director for Project 2025. And there's their little website if you want to go there. It's project2025.org. I mean, you can go there and download this thing yourself and look at it. It's there. Don't buy the book, though. They got enough money. Let's see. Scroll on down. There's a lot of names of people in here that you know and would recognize right off. Okay. Let's go on down. The contributors, there's a bunch of contributors. Hundreds. They tell you where they're from. Okay. Donald Devine, the Fund for American Studies, the Mitchell Institute for Aerospace Studies, American Cornerstone Institute, Family Research Council. Oh my God. So right there's Family Research Council. Jeez. Okay. If you don't know who they are, let me see. The Eagle Forum should be in here somewhere. I'm pretty sure Eagle Forum. If you don't know who Eagle Forum is, remember all the Tea Party stuff that was taking place back when Obama was president? Well, they transitioned into the Eagle Forum. Just so you know, this Ethics and Policy Center right up here, Ethics and Policy Center. Ryan Anderson is the president for that group. Ryan Anderson, one of the most anti-trans people in the country, who throws his academic background into it and tries to defend his anti-minority views. I've written several things about this transgender ideology, and I have to tell you, I'm not an ideology. No, I am me. You are conservative, that's an ideology. You are Ryan Anderson, that's who you are. Well, I'm Cassandra Williamson, and that's who I am. And I just so happen to be trans, and you so happen to be white. Oh my gosh. Anyway, this stuff is just so horrible right now. That's a lot of people. We've gone through this thing. Here's that foreword by Dr. Kevin Roberts. Paragraph number 2 talks about continue to escalate. Let me see. Inflation is ravaging family budgets, and drug overdose deaths continue to escalate, and children suffer the toxic normalization of transgenderism, with drag queens and pornography invading our school libraries. That's paragraph 2. In the same paragraph, paragraph 2, moreover, low-income communities are drowning in addiction and government dependence. And so are the wealthy communities too. There's just as equally as much addiction in those communities too. So don't let them just make you think that this is an addiction that only applies to, that only low-income communities have addiction problems. That's not the case. It is every community has an addiction problem in this country. But what they're really saying, they want to focus on this government dependence part over here. All right. Contemporary elites have even repurposed the worst ingredients of the 1970s. And this is so funny. I grew up in the 70s. I don't recall it being a radical chic. Do you? But contemporary elites have even repurposed the worst ingredients of the 1970s radical chic to build the totalitarian cult known today as the Great Awakening. It's not known that. Dr. Roberts, you are trying to make it be known that way, but it is not known that way. You're trying to define something, Dr. Roberts, that simply is not there. You're just scared of people who don't look like you, think like you, believe like you, or who are not as right as you. Let's put it that way. And right, I'm using in multiple ways, just to make it easy. Okay. Oh my gosh. So this goes down through a lot. So you got to read this thing. Go over there and find it. Find it. You can read it. Now, this is where I was going to pick up today, but as you can tell, I've spoken for 45 minutes and haven't even made it to promise number 1, contained in the foreword, written by Dr. Roberts. Remember, this is a consensus document. Yes, the foreword is written by an individual, but it's stuck in there as a guide for the rest of the darn book or document. And this, I don't understand how a historian could actually say this. This part right here, right now, the one that's in yellow with a big red section. In many ways, there's a caveat to catch and kind of feel like you're, not totally idiotic. trying to sound like you actually do believe in academic freedom and thought. Yes. All right. The entire point of centralized political power is to subvert the family. Bullshit. Can I just say that out loud and no one get offended by this? That is such total bullshit. That's not the purpose for centralized power, political power, or governance for that matter. Not at all. Anyway, its purpose is to replace people's this natural loves and loyalties with unnatural ones. That is atrocious. Here you are, you got this great awakening taking place up there in your first or second paragraph and the forward to this darn thing, but down here you're drawing these distinctions between natural loves and loyalties with unnatural ones. I'm just so dismayed that there are actually people who think this. But I'm also hugely dismayed in us on this side for not taking it back to them and fighting directly with them about it. It's not going to go away. This is who they are. This is how they want to go about doing it. This is what they want to do to get there. And this is what they're calling all of us who don't agree with this right education, Rufo's term. This right America. Or real people, as Dr. Roberts uses in that same paragraph right there. All right, so let me see. These are the mediating institutions that serve as the building blocks for any healthy society. Wait a minute, let me go back and finish this. You see this, and after the unnatural ones, you see this is the popular left-wing aphorism, government is simply the name you give to the things you choose to do together. Yeah, and you wrote a consensus document. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to point that out to you. The logical hypocrisy that occurred right there in that statement. Okay, all right. These are the things that you had. Let me just put it like this. Project 20. I'm going to rephrase that whole line for you, Dr. Roberts. Right there. Project 2025 is simply the name that we give to the things we choose to do together. Does that sound better? The mandate for leadership, the Heritage Foundation. Let me put it like this. The Heritage Foundation is simply the name we give to the things we choose to do together. That's the crux of this whole document right there. That one sentence says it all. You can just replace government with whatever you want to stick in there. Miller and Roberts and all the rest of you. But in real life, most of the things people do together have nothing to do with government. Individually, familially, true. Well, unless, of course, you're conservative And then you're out here trying to tell the families that, you know, you don't have a right to go to the doctor you need to go to take care of your transgender child. Well, that's different. That's a bridge too far for this definition of things, right? Right, right. Hypocrisy much, anyone? Now let me see here. These are the mediating institutions that serve as the building blocks for any healthy society. They should have put a colon after society, by the way, not a period. That's grammar Nazi over here. Marriage, family, work, church, school, volunteering. Those are all worthy things. Those are all worthy things. The problem or the challenge occurs whenever you want to decide that these things need to be defined the way you want them to be defined and not the way the other half of the country wants them defined. For you, a healthy society it consists of marriage, family, work, church, school, volunteering. Sure, fine. But you want that marriage to be defined in a certain way. You want the family to be defined in a certain way. You want work to be defined in a certain way. And the church is Christian nationalism. And it does not, you didn't use synagogue. You didn't even use Islamic center or a temple. No. School. And obviously the school has to be one to ban all the books you want too, right? Volunteering. Well, if you're volunteering for all these different things over through here that you have defined already, then that's fine. But if you're out here spending time volunteering for other organizations that don't support your definition of marriage, family, work, church, and school, then they can't be right Americans or real people, as in the next sentence. The name real people give to the things we do together is community and not government. This is hilarious. This is really hilarious. It's true that communities define who we are, but those communities come together to decide among themselves a best way to collaborate and work together to get things done that is beneficial for the community. That's obviously government, if you actually use that as a means for getting the roads taken care of, or the police to show up when you need the police to be there, or the fire department to show up, or God forbid that you need to have garbage picked up and clean water made available to everyone who lives in that community, right? Yeah. But the rest of us who actually don't agree with your definition of family, marriage, work, school, volunteering, well, they're not real people. In other words, what you're saying is these are real Americans, and anyone who doesn't agree with you is not a real American. And that is offensive. That statement is offensive. And this is just in promise number 1. Restore the family as the centerpiece of American life and protect our children. Wow, that's some really noble goals. And absolutely, we agree with that. We just may have a slightly different definition of how the family is to be constructed, or how they can be built or constructed or lived in their own lives as they see fit. If anything, the view that we take is much more welcoming and not so narrowly defined, not bigoted or biased in any way, obviously we can be, and obviously we can do that, and it's wrong for us to do it just as bad as it is wrong for you to do it over there. Doesn't matter. It happens all across the fence. Okay, but anyway, the point is, we're real people, and we are real Americans, and our definition of marriage encompasses everything that you want in that definition, plus a little bit more. It's the little bit more that you don't like. We also accept this definition of family, and it's a little bit more on our side than what is on your side. You have a definition for that, and I can guarantee you that family doesn't consist of gay men or gay people or lesbians or bisexual people. I mean, no. Your definition of a family and marriage involves opposite sex straight people. You missed the whole boat. We are being more inclusive than you can ever possibly even imagine, but you don't like our inclusivity because you want to strike those words from the whole of government. And I mean, yeah, you can look back up at the top up here. Let me go back up. No, I think it's probably underneath that promise somewhere. Da-da-da-da. Yeah, it's on down through here just a little bit more. And this is still under promise number 1, restoring the family. Okay, this is a couple of paragraphs down into that. Let me blow it up. I'm going to get this large before we actually have to close it. We don't have to close out. We can keep on going. But anyway, the next conservative president must make the institution of American civil society hard targets for woke culture warriors. What the hell are those? This starts with deleting the term sexual orientation, gender identity, SOGI, diversity, equity, inclusion, DEI. I'm going down the screen. Gender equality, gender equity, gender awareness, gender sensitivity, abortion, reproductive rights, reproductive health, and any other term used to deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights. And before I read the rest of that line, there's so much hypocrisy in that statement right there. I don't get it. I don't get it. We're Americans too, but wait a minute though. You actually said that we're not real at the top and we're unnatural and then basically undeserving of any kind of protections under the Constitution. That's what you're leading this into, correct? And that is asininely stupid. Oh my gosh. All right. So the First Amendment rights deprive Americans of. No one's depriving anyone. We just want to make sure that everyone is actually heard and not the ones you want heard. We want everyone to have a voice. You know, that is just, I mean, it appeals to somebody, but you know, it really fails in a huge way. It's hypocrisy. And here's what it says. To deprive Americans of their First Amendment rights out of every federal, let me pull up, we can read it again. The top line up here, every federal rule, agency regulation, contract, grant, regulation, piece of legislation that exists. If anything out there in the whole of government has any of those terms in it, plus many others, that kind of morphs because they get offended easily, apparently. That kind of morphs into all kinds of things. So, I mean, any of those words, sexual orientation, gender identity, gender, abortion, you can throw in intersectionality, you can throw in every kind of thing like that across the whole of the federal enterprise, across the whole of the executive branch, then there will be no research that involves studying why certain populations have a health disparity compared to the others. There will be no recognition of the fact that certain groups of people are treated differently than the others. In reality, real people are treated differently across this country based on their identities. And many times it compounds whenever there are multiple intersecting identities all associated together. And the research behind all that to study it has got to be done. But if you strip the language out of the federal code across the whole of government, then you don't have to identify those problems and you can just pretend they don't exist, which is your whole point anyway, right? So going on down, next paragraph down. Pornography. And this conflating of all this together has been going on for decades, and it is as wrong now as it was then. But yet, I mean, it sells, right? It gets people to follow along after all this crap. Manifested today in the omnipresent propagation of transgender ideology and sexualization of children. If you stop right there, you'll see that this is just crazy. There are lots of things wrong with that whole sentence. First thing is, I'm not an ideology. Conservatism is an ideology. Republicanism is an ideology. However, being transgender is not, as I mentioned before. And you can try to go down that road all you want with that kind of crap, but it is still not true. However, truth seems to be absolutely the thing that's missing in everything that's in this. But yet, it's presented in such a way as a consensus document that you think that most of the country would agree with you, Dr. Roberts. And I'm talking to you specifically. You and I need to have a conversation sometime and sit down and have a conversation about what is right and what is wrong. Because there's an ethical argument going on right there, and it's a conflating of things in order to drive a wedge between other Americans. All right, so for instance, is not a political Gordian knot inextricably binding up desperate claims about free speech, property rights, sexual liberation, and child welfare? And then you say this: it has no claim to a First Amendment protection. Dr. Roberts, what planet are you living on? With that, come back tomorrow and let's have another conversation. I'll get into this. I mean, really, we have to be going. We have to be doing things. Let me stop sharing. And that's what I want to know. What planet, what universe is any of this actually correct? I'm not going to use the term that y'all like to use. How this is morally reprehensible, the way you're saying this and the way that you're trying to drive a wedge between your fellow Americans. This has got to stop. And we've got to take this thing right straight to where it goes. You know, I've got the 3-door analogy, but I'll talk about that tomorrow. Anyway, let me stop sharing. I think I did already. Let me go back to get my screen back up where I can see what I'm doing. And there was one comment over there. Yeah, I see that. So General Kelly has confirmed that statements made by Trump against the military people, dead heroes buried in France, being seen with wounded soldiers, etc. Yeah, right. I know that's, yes. We have to go after them, Angela. We have to go after all of these people out here who are trying to drive us down and shut us out. And it's the hardest thing in the world to do. Organizations that are C3 based, 501c3 under the IRS code, they can't get out there and do what I'm doing right now. But only in a limited way, a very small, limited way. They can't go after certain projects and certain people specifically. But those organizations and their people in them, they're doing great work. Doing great work out there. Doing the things that C3 is designed to do. However, that's not the whole fight. As a matter of fact, the most important fight, well, there's two sides to it. There's two sides, probably more sides. One, you do have to take care of veterans, and you do have to take care of diverse populations in the country. You have to acknowledge the existence of diversity and the fact that you're struggling to be inclusive. You have to acknowledge those kind of things. And that's where the C3 can help, making sure that our people have the resources, tools, the access to medical care, and all of that kind of thing that is no more than anyone else and no less than anyone else. That's the C3's role. They do a great job of all that kind of stuff, helping. But this C4 side, we've got to fight the battle that is right. That's the political side. That's in the halls of government, because they can take the halls of government and turn it against all these minorities, which is what Project 2025 is all about. Turning the whole of government inside out and making it a weapon to use against anyone who is minority. All minorities. With that, I'm going to try to put a smile on, because I can actually this is just craziness, and it just pisses me off that we can't get people motivated. Come on, get off your asses and get moving. Okay? I'm going to end this.